of behavioral sciences. And I just want to give you a little brief that we started university in 2009 and this institute in 2014. And this institute is very much engaged in a lot of research related to criminology, victimology, on organized crimes and various other things. So we are running various courses where approximately 5,000 students they come and learn related to behavioral sciences and criminology courses. So today, I know that I'm personally attached with this organization from a pretty long time, and I really appreciate the value and the work which this organization is doing from the last so many years. So what we are going to do is probably there are five panelists, so we would like to speak for 10 to 12 minutes. And then we would also like to have a question and answers. May I request Micha if she can upload the slides so that I can start my...
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll take a moment. So is it visible?
Yes, it is visible. If you can make it in a bigger screen, that would be...
Yeah, so I'll do it. Just a second.
Okay, in the meantime, let me tell you the topic is cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, a double-edged sword. These days, everybody is talking about cybersecurity. People started talking about like 15, 20 years back, and artificial intelligence has just taken momentum, especially after ChatGPT. And many people think that artificial intelligence will take over the world. But let me tell you that that's never going to happen, because artificial intelligence will always be a co-pilot, but never be a pilot, because that's why the name is artificial intelligence, and it's not. And a human being is a super intelligent, and they create these kind of things. So, but the only thing which is worrying me and probably the entire world is about the cyber crime. Is how that will get a lot of advantage and leeway through the artificial intelligence. As we know that cybercrime is a growing everybody is talking about, and even in India. How I can go next? I don't want to go into the definitions. Please, next slide, please. Now, this is an interesting slide. I'll just spend 30 seconds on this. Is that in 1 minute, if you see that almost 452 hours of content streamed on Netflix, if you see that almost now touching 4 million YouTube videos being watched in every minute, almost like 170 million videos watched on TikTok every minute, 2 million Snapchats are being sent, and over 2 million people active on Facebook. So every minute, if you see the whole data, you will come to know that, there is a lot of scope and opportunity to be indulging into cybercrime. Next slide. This is a very interesting slide that there are probably now, I would say, there are like 69 to 70% people are on net. And next slide. And that I would also like to mention that there are in total around 5.5 billion people have an access, and they are using net. Now, this is an interesting slide where, if according to the population of the continent, if Asia is having a population of 54.9%, so you will see that the penetration rate is much higher over here. And the internet of the percentage of the world which we are using is also 50.2%. But the only thing is where in Africa, if you see that is they are having a world's population of 17.5%, but this is only 11%. But just to let you know that according to the world population percentage, more or less similar penetration and internet usage is being happened. Next slide. This is now we are going to talk about India. It's an interesting thing that if you see from 2007 to 2022 in last 15 years, that we started with the 4%, and today we are somewhere around 50% people. So India has a 1.4 billion population, and a roughly 700 million population is having an not only access, but they are using internet. There's another slide which says that next slide, which says that 31% of the internet users are less than 19 years of age. This is a matter of concern. When people are studying, when people are like in India or various other countries, we are seeing that the unemployment rate is growing. And at this age, when people are having a lot of access, but then they don't have any job, then they would try to engage in cybercrime. Next slide. There are a lot of statistics. It's NCRB is a National Crime Report Bureau, which every year we are getting these reports. These are very, very people don't go. In fact, we did a survey in our university on our students. We asked if somebody hacked your account, and would you be going and reporting? 90% students said they are not going to report unless it is a big thing. In 2021, roughly 53,000 incidents were reported. This was a 6% higher than the 2020. But it's not the number of the cases. What I just want to let you know that first is underreported. Two, even if it is there, there are not a proper investigation. We don't have a proper skilled or manpower who can do these kind of things. Three, even if it goes to the court, there is no one has been convicted so far. Next slides. In our Indian report of 2021, what is the cybercrime motive? As a behavioral scientist, we would like to know. The majority of the people are engaging in fraud. And the second highest is personal revenge and causing disrepute. But I am more concerned when people are engaging. Now, these are highly unreported cases. Next slide, please. Another police disposal cybercrime, as I said, that what kind of cases we are getting. Identity theft is probably the highest, and then another cases. Next slide. The number looks very, very small. Now, this is now talking about artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. So we are fully aware about that. Now I'm going to talk about a little positive thing, because we are not able to have that skilled manpower to investigate these kind of cases. But if we use artificial intelligence properly, then it is definitely a speedier detection, and also network protection can exist over there. So I will just explain these things in little detail more. Next slide. The benefits of automating artificial intelligence in cybersecurity is that we can have a pace when these criminals are basically trying to learn many more things. But then if we use artificial intelligence, that where exactly, in fact, this is related very well with criminal profiling, which we used to do it, that from the location wise, and how much is the possibility the person can engage on those kind of things. But if we use artificial intelligence, then I personally feel that these are the benefits, because people will continuously learning on it and discovering unknown threats that which we can come to know beforehand. Even right now, sometimes because of the artificial intelligence, when we open, the people says that there could be a threat on these kind of viruses. So that helps us to not to go to those particular sites. Vast data volumes can be handled through AI, improved vulnerability management, and enhanced overall security posture. So all these kind of things which we could feel that can, through artificial intelligence, we may curtail cybersecurity. Next slide. Next slide. This is, again, I'm talking about which we just mentioned, that global artificial intelligence in cybersecurity market. So, in 2019, if you see that the market size was only 8.6 billion, whereas in 2030, it will reach up to 101, like 102 billion. But in the market growth from 20 to 30 is almost 25.7%. And think about how rapidly it is growing. Next slide. Next slide. Now, what are the various types of cyber crimes that can be influenced by artificial intelligence? One is, we all know, I'm not going to go into the detail, that phishing and identity theft, because this is probably the most common type of the cyber crime where people are being involved. Second is online harassment and cyberbullying. Now, the cyberbullying, since we are doing a lot of work in school education, and we have seen that students are also being victim of cyberbullying in a big way. The another thing is hackers and cyber terrorists, which is also growing, and not in a big way, but I could see that there is an increase year on year on this particular cyber crime as well. Next slide. Now, what are the disadvantages? Because as I said, that sometimes we talk about advantages, which is definitely there in terms of investigation. But if I talk about the disadvantages in artificial intelligence, job displacement, yes, then, human beings, less human beings would be required, and there will be not enough jobs for everyone. Next slide. Bias and discrimination, because artificial intelligence is not that it is automatically being done, but ultimately the data has to be fed. And then when we feed this kind of a data, obviously bias and discrimination can, we could see that as well. Next slide. Security risk, because once artificial intelligence is, we are going to use it so much. So the border security and other kind of security, definitely through artificial intelligence, people would have an access. And then number 4 is dependence on technology, because then everything we would be able to do it only through technology only. Next slide. What would be the impact of artificial intelligence on society? One is definitely an economic impact. The impact of artificial intelligence on the economy is complex and multifaceted. While artificial intelligence can create new job opportunities and increase productivity, it can also lead to job displacement, which we just talked about. Next slide. Social impact. Social impact of artificial intelligence is also significant, can improve access to services and improve quality of life. Next. Political impact. People are definitely going to use it. Rather, people are using it for political impact. Yes. Next. Environmental impact. This is finally, I would say that artificial intelligence can have an impact on the environment, both positive and negative. For example, artificial intelligence can be used to optimize energy consumption or to improve environmental monitoring. However, the production of disposal of AI system can also have negative environmental consequences. This is basically, I just wanted to introduce artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. My learned colleagues will take forward, and then we are looking for a discussion. Thank you very much. Over to Samiksha and Vipin, please.
Thank you so much, sir. We would be taking the questions at the end of the session. For the next speaker, we have Professor Mohita Junarkar, who is a professor at Jindal Institute of Behavioral Sciences, OP Jindal Global University, and she's going to brief us about AI-powered data analysis, unleashing the power of big data. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Samiksha. So, while my colleague has already covered and laid the background for us on what is the role of AI in the scenario of crime, I'm going to be taking it forward for crime prevention and prediction in the age of AI, where I'm going to be focusing on how specifically it helps us in unleashing the organized crime which is there. So when we're looking at crime prevention and prediction, we all know that it's all about a proactive measures to be taken to reduce any kind of criminal activities which is there, but it also is going to be helping us to forecast any criminal incidents before they are going to be occurring. So while we're looking at AI in crime prevention and prediction, there are three major pillars where it helps us. One is enhanced analytical abilities, because they're going to be helping us. There is already a vast amount of data, which also comes a lot from the prior criminal profiling techniques, which have been upgraded these days. So it helps us to identify the patterns of crime which are actually taking place. We know the trends which are there. How are crimes actually being, how organized crimes are being executed today. Hence, there can be an early intervention whereby all of this pre-existing data, if we create algorithms, AI algorithms which are there, then definitely it can help us to prevent any kind of high-risk individuals or areas, demarcate the groups, demarcate the areas in which they can be committing any kind of crime which is there, because a lot of organized crimes are already pre-mediated, which means there's a lot of planning which goes in. So definitely the planning stage, while the criminals are doing their action, the AI can help the police to predict what is the likelihood of occurrence of this entire of the action and in which area they are going to be doing. If the police know about it, then definitely they can be improving their resource allocations which are there. So that's where the crime prediction models come into the picture, because they can be helping the police. We know globally all the police, they have only limited resources, so they have to effectively use all of these resources that they have, and that's where the prediction comes into the picture. When we're looking at generally how AI is going to be helping law enforcement and security agencies, there are four major things where it is helping us to do. One is to detect the patterns and any kind of anomalous behavior which can be cited of people. It also is going to be helping to look at the crime patterns, behaviors, and how and where are people really being, where the crowd is going to be is concentrating and during which time. There is protect any kind of critical infrastructure which is there. So if we have, all countries have certain infrastructure which is very much, it's something which is concentrated, then definitely you know that you want to protect all of these things. And of course, uncover the criminal networks as well. So this is something where you would be having the security and the law enforcement agencies coming into the picture. While I do speak on this, there have been an effectiveness, certain cases with the help of AI, which have been already resolved or they have been prevented. Like the one system, which is where we are looking at smart surveillance systems as one of the mechanisms, which globally we know is about the CCTVs. We have seen it. So whether it has been in a research study by CCTV on UK and Freedom of Information Request 2021, they have seen that a total of 691,000 CCTV cameras were installed in London, which did again lead to a decrease in 13% of crime rate, especially in places where CCTV was installed as compared to places where it was not installed. Similarly, when we look at smart surveillance systems, like even in India, we have certain cities where we are targeting them to be even smart cities. In crowded places where these cameras have been installed, it has been a deterrent for people in a lot of ways. Like when you have cameras for overspeeding, we have seen that there has been a reduction in the number of people actually overspeeding on the road. So where we say we are looking at smart surveillance systems, yes, they have acted as to be a deterrent at certain in certain places. Similarly, there have been cases, whether it's been Boston Marathon bombing or the 7/11 July attacks in London, we have seen that there has been an effectiveness of the AI which is there. Now, while we talk of predictiveness, AI actually in crime prevention, yes, the Los Angeles Police Department, who's there, they have been able to decrease, and this is based on the research and the data that they have been producing. They can, because of the prediction and using of AI algorithms, they were able to deploy officers strategically only in those places where they thought that crime is now going to be taking place, and hence because of the strategic placement of the police officers, the crime in those hotspots was it has been reduced. So where we are looking at AI, this is one place where you could be finding. The second place where we are talking about is fraud detection. When we are looking at financial crimes, when we are looking at crimes which take place through social media, where channels of WhatsApp, Facebook, Telegram, all of these have been used. You have a lot of dating sites which are also into frauds, like you have Bumble, you have Tinder. We have seen, and there have been incidents which have reported about how these have actually led to a lot of crimes. Now, over here also, if there are going to be mechanisms in place, then definitely certain fraudulent activities can be detected. So while we all know about how Twitter came up with a blue tick mark and then it was withdrawn, it was done by Twitter to have the AI analytics in place to see what kind of posts were people really repeatedly they were posting, which could have any essence of where you're talking about any levels of essence for crime to take place or any kind of spread of the hate crime which is there. So we have seen a lot of cases where messages or fake messages through WhatsApp have circulated, and it has related to hate crime based on ethnicity, religion as well. So we're saying that there was a report even by Infosys where they said that AI will assist to identify and warn any kind of irregularities which take place in real-time banking transactions or app usage, payment methods, and other financial activities. So in practicality, if I could talk about India, we do have this in place. If there is an X amount of any transactions above, say, 1 lakh INR that a person does, generally most of the banks will land up giving you a phone call immediately. There is a call that comes and you're supposed to be authorizing or saying yes that you have done such and such transaction from your account. So if it's not going to be done through the branch, or you're not physically going to a branch and doing it with a branch manager, where he's going to be keying in the OTPs that he receives, one-time passwords, then definitely there will be a call which will be made to the customer. This is also one of the ways in which we are saying that we are alerting the people with any levels of banking frauds which could be taking. Now, these kind of systems will help in not only banking, but even block any kind of malice or stop any levels of fraud which is there. While we are today also talking about the sustainable development goals, and we are, as a world, we are moving, as academicians, we are moving and helping people to achieve the sustainable development goals which are there, we need to also look at the benefits of crime, of AI driven crime prevention and SDGs. How is this whether it's going to be for organized crimes, which are generally taking place for banking, which take place in terrorist accounts, and how does it even help us to achieve the SDGs, and which SDGs is it really going to be helping us to achieve? So the first one is the SDG 11, which is talking of safe communities. So definitely we want to have sustainable cities, but at the same time, we also need to ensure that communities are safe, crime rates are low, because only when we know that crime rates are going to be low, there are people are going to be flourishing enough, definitely it will be enhancing the quality of life. So our quality of life is determined by not just we ourselves, but also by our environment, which was also touched upon by my colleague earlier. So that's where we are talking about how safe communities is going to be really addressed if we talk about crime prevention, and AI can help us in that. Similarly, it will help us to also achieve our sustainable goal, which is 16 for peace, justice, and strong institutions, because this is going to be giving us, once the police know that, yes, there is going to be a crime in place A, they can have their policing mechanisms, which going to be strengthened for place A, and hence it's going to be a quicker response time by the police. There are going to be more accurate investigations. So the investigation time is going to be reduced, and definitely the resource allocation also is going to be fair enough. So we will be not wasting any kind of even resources, and hence there's going to be an efficient justice systems which is there. And of course, as an institution, if we look at the criminal justice system in all the countries, and definitely they are also going to be benefited by this, because they become strengthened with the kind of efficiency levels going up. And similarly, we also have somewhere the SDG 9, which is being addressed, because when we speak of banking, we are speaking of industries. We are going to be looking at kind of crimes which are of course, today changing. Therefore, where all of these data insights that we are going to be getting, they can help us to make better, efficient decisions, to track people's behaviors which are there, whether it's going to be in an internet-driven space, or it's going to be in a physically driven space. So all of these will help us to also make more rational, data-driven decision makings, and thus strengthening the SDG 9 as well. So this is something which will be benefiting us to, if we are going to be really focused on crime prevention, then it will be helping us to also look at the SDG 9, which is there. Then we are looking at the legal and ethical considerations in AI crime prevention. So there are three main ethical and legal considerations which are there, where we are looking at transparency, accountability, and the human oversight which is there. So definitely when we are looking at transparency, they are going to be helping us AI algorithms to be transparent enough, the data usage to avoid any kind of potential biases and violation of privacy rights. Accountability, definitely any kind of unintended consequences or misuse of AI technologies in crime prevention. So these kind of accountability frameworks can be made. And of course, a human oversight, which definitely happens, especially when we are looking at industries, we are looking at sectors like banking, where a lot of financial frauds are also taking place. Over there, definitely the AI can help us better, rather than have the human interface even coming into the picture. So when we're looking at the future of AI and crime prevention, as the technology continues to advance, we are definitely looking at transforming law enforcement practices to create safer societies through any kinds of proactive strategies and data-driven insights. Yes. Uh, I would be glad to take any questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you, everyone, for your attentive listening.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We move on to the third speaker for the day, Dr. Vipin Vijay Nair. He's an assistant professor with Jindal Institute of Behavioral Sciences, OP Jindal Global University. Sir, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Samiksha. And I would like to thank both the colleagues, Professor Sani and Professor Mohita, who did talk about the AI and cybersecurity and AI and data-driven crime prevention, because taking forward from both the presentation where you would have seen that we are highlighting the emphasis on how financial crime and fraud has increased over time, and there could be a higher possibility that there would be subsequent crime that can happen through AI or utilizing AI in the financial market, financial system, or financial institution. There is a trend, there's a possibility that it could subsequently enhance and increase identity theft. It could increase fraudulent aspect. So I'll just bring to you and bring forward few of the statistics and few of the ongoing measures which have been mentioned by various researchers in various institutions, especially the big fours, PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, and all the other auditing firms and consultancy firms who have focused on what could be the role of AI when we are talking about financial crime detection, how they have utilized those measures, especially in today's time and the ongoing technology era, how they're utilized in their system, and how it can help in unmasking illegal or illicit transactions. So it is still, I would say, an ongoing field. Not much have been contributed. There's a dedicated, I would say, future towards AI that we can look into in the financial market. So the first thing that I want to point out when you talk about the element associated with the financial crime and AI is how we can utilize AI or the innovation spectrum. So I'll talk about both artificial intelligence and machine learning as one spectrum and how it can reflect in the growth or advancement of artificial intelligence into the financial market or financial institution. So first is the cognitive aspect that I will talk about. So when you talk about any element of customer interaction, when there is a human reasoning which is associated, it would be useful and effective if all those aspects are replaced, or I would say aided by AI. As I think one of my colleagues was also talking about how we could have various kind of unemployment prospect growing when we have AI advancement coming in. So here also when you talk about any kind of human reasoning, and when you talk about decision making, especially talk about customer services, now we have bots, chatbots, which are coming in. So that's one major development which has happened in AI associated with financial institution. They are looking into various kind of creativity, how we can cognitively reflect and mimic the customer interaction, especially the human interaction which is there. So that's the one aspect which has grown over time. And secondly, when we talk about machine learning, I think language algorithm model and especially machine learning is something which all of us have seen. And especially I want to bring about the chat GPT, which is I think very common. Everybody knows about it. Everybody has utilized it, most probably if you are on internet. That's one aspect where the programming and the coding and the algorithm has worked not just to help individual creatively, but has also led to certain kind of financial crime also, which talks about proxy website and subsequently people getting into it, utilizing for their benefit, but they are not able to get the best of the entire platform. And the third aspect, when I talk about any kind of innovation in AI, especially in financial market, is talking about the automation process. Now, automation previously was just related to robots or certain kind of logistical and the supply chain management. It could have been one aspect of supply chain, but now it has overtaken and it has come into the organization and institution framework also. Moving a little outside of the financial institution, I want to bring about the robotics and the process automation is when we have driverless car. So that's one aspect of AI that has come into the robotics and the automation process. But now a lot of it, there are a number of institutions globally where they have robotics for any kind of customer interaction in their organization. Once you enter into the organization, you'll be able to see them. You are interacting with a robot rather than individuals. There are a lot of services which are offered in various hospitality industries where they are subsequently focusing on that. So now it's not just about the interaction that leads to it, but how it would subsequently also reflect any kind of security threat, or how it can aid is a challenge that we need to look into. So those are a few things that I want to highlight upon. And now I want to share one major insight where a large number of organizations, when you talk about the Association of Certified Fraud Examination or the Association of Certified Financial Crime Specialists, they have been highlighting STR, or which talks about suspicious transaction report or suspicious transaction cases. So right now, what we are doing is we are using basic technology to understand a threshold or to understand various kind of issues and errors that are cropping up. But if we utilize AI, especially in financial crime compliance, which is subsequently focusing on transactions, it could not only reduce our cost, but it will also increase the efficiency and effectiveness. I'll just share with you one or two examples which would be very useful when we talk about the role of transaction monitoring, especially aligning with the financial institution. So right now, many organizations are using Excel. They are using Excel to have a threshold. They're using for checking duplicates. They're using that for errors. But AI can subsequently reduce the time which is utilized to capture those errors. AI can subsequently help us to capture it in minimalistic time. So the efficiency of providing alerts would increase. Efficiency to provide various kind of monitoring of a transaction would subsequently be effective. Now there is a higher chance of human errors that we see, wherein because of certain kind of mistyping, or there would be certain kind of errors that human can make, there would be a reduced chance when we have automated process, and through the artificial intelligence in the financial market or financial institution, we would have a better transaction monitoring system or any kind of alert based system that can come in, where even when you talk about ATM frauds, I'll just highlight how certain countries, wherein if you talk about Australia and few other countries, have taken this measure where ATM frauds, which was subsequently focused on a card skimming or shimming way, or any aspect of shoulder surfing, or somebody who has taken through social engineering or reverse engineering, have taken access of the card and utilizing it. AI is being used to, one, as Professor Mohita was mentioning, about the CCTV. So even in CCTV, they're utilizing that particular technology in monitoring the ATM in unusual hours, which means that if somebody over the period of time, so they also do a trend analysis, and it is done automatically. There's an automated measure onto it. They will do a trend analysis to see that if somebody, if at a particular ATM, nobody turns up after 12 midnight till 4 a.m. It has not been a trend over time, but in the last couple of days, there have been certain kind of visits by one individual, which the camera can capture. So over time, it will subsequently build up that, okay, this is a suspicious transaction. And at the first time itself, when the person comes in an unusual hours, there would be an alert that there is a transaction which is happening, which is an unusual transaction. So it's not reflecting that it's a fraudulent transaction, but it's an unusual transaction. And then based on other technologies to look into it, that, okay, if the person who has entered the card has subsequently put a card, what was a previous transaction which was there. So there would be a dedicated interaction and coordination and a collaboration of different, I would say, entities and transactions, which will reflect that, okay, this is a fraudulent transaction and this is not a genuine transaction, which is there. So these are a few things wherein you can have various kind of technology, especially the artificial intelligence and machine learning, which will help us identify if there is any kind of error in a transaction or a fraudulent transaction which is there. Last thing would I talk about transaction monitoring is to employ various kind of technology-driven bots or any kind of machine learning which can scan various, I would say, screens internet search histories or internet transaction which is there. This is very important when you talk about any kind of insider trading, because a lot of organizations do not allow an individual to, I would say, look into social media and so on and so forth in their office hours. So rather than micromanaging, there can be various AI tools which will subsequently reflect an alert when an individual is either sending an email which has a larger notification or larger, I would say, attachment, or if individuals are logging onto the social media to reflect that because it is going against the company policy, that could also be reflected as a particular alert to senior management or whoever the head would be to look into those aspects. Now I want to bring upon, because the first two was where AI has a limited, I would say, advancement till now. But when you talk about KYC or know your customer, especially in India also and abroad, I believe it has taken into consideration way before, but India also have taken a role of utilizing AI in KYC. Previously, if I talk about 3 years, 4 years, maybe 5 years before, people used to go to banks and different financial institutions to get their account open, get any kind of subscription, any kind of membership or so forth to function as a financial customer. But now everything is automated, which is that within just a click of and a mobile phone in your hand and just one click, you would be able to open your bank accounts. You'll be able to get any kind of money transfer because there is an automated process. And through artificial intelligence, they're also able to understand that, okay, these are your favorites. Would you want to continue pursuing this transaction? If this is there, there is a dedicated monitoring that when you enter a AFSC code, which is a valid code for a bank, it will reflect that this is the bank that you're talking about. So there's a dedicated data which is fed, and through technology and through artificial intelligence, they're also able to understand that if this is a fraudulent transaction, if somebody transact through a foreign I would say the foreign IP address or any kind of internet address that they have or the geographical address, it will subsequently reflect that no, this is a flagged transaction because the person belongs to India, but the transaction which is happening is rerouted from, let's say, Malaysia or China or Africa or so forth. So those are a few aspects where know your customer plus the customer's integrity and the authenticity is also being monitored and looked into. So these are a few aspects which have grown, and over time we will see that it would be rarely that the customers and any individual would be going to bank for any kind of transaction, and everything can be done with just the smartphone and any kind of small click that they want to go forward. Aligning with compliances, I want to also highlight that the aspect of compliance testing is also very important. When we talk about any kind of compliance testing, it talks about auditing, it talks about any kind of enforcement order. So now everything is done manually or through various kind of basic technology. But what can be done over time is that everything in terms of data set, as Professor Mohita was talking about big data and how data analytics works, we would be having a dedicated data set where everything would be automated. We do not have to manually go and check different kind of transaction or different kind of statistics which comes into picture. All would be automated, aligning with auditing activity, aligning with all the public orders which are there, all the law enforcement orders, the law that comes into picture. Everything would be taken into consideration through AI or algorithms or machine learning aspect that comes into picture. Just to help you understand how AI is contributing and subsequently can contribute for the development or the growth of business. One is, and it can reduce the false positives. Through human error, there are chances that we reflect false positive, but through AI and different kind of client screening, because we would have a standard threshold, we'll have dedicated framework, it will help us reduce the false positive. And especially when we reduce false positive, we would have to go into the framework where we are providing automation. So automation of client reviews. Now, even across globe, we have seen a trend that all the customer care agents, customer care chats, customer care email reply have gone automated. So that is only happening because we have utilized AI into the framework. And through that process, we would also be able to detect any kind of errors, any kind of unusual activity or unusual patterns which could be there, especially if it doesn't meet the correlation, if there are certain kind of issue, especially where there's high risk, there are challenges which are breaking the rules. So those are few aspects which are very relevant when we talk about it. Now, just to highlight few practices which are followed and which can subsequently grow over time, especially in the financial sector, is one is the security and compliance. And there are four major things that I want to highlight as the final few elements that I want to bring into notice of all the audience and the panelists here. One is customer experience that I did talk about. As I did give you example that the KYC aspect previously, which was manual, where in-person requirement was there. Now everything has gone as an automated measure. We have AI controlled onboarding platforms where you can interact with a robot, you can interact with an AI generated bot who would help you to enroll and onboard as a customer. Then portfolio management is very relevant when we talk about banks, insurance sectors, or even when we talk about stock market, wherein a portfolio is being provided as per your risk. So they will ask you questions and subsequently will provide you a portfolio, and you would be able to go forward and focus that this is something which is relevant to it. The second last point that I want to point out is the prevention measures, especially to prevent fraud, which is there, and localization. So localization aligning with fraud would be a challenge for sure, because when you talk about local languages, local culture, a lot of time, let's say, I will give you a stereotypical aspect. Let's say if you talk about India, and if we have a bot or a chatbot which is not reflective of India, and it is reflecting, let's say, a Western scenario or a global scenario where we can't have an interaction with them, that would be surely a challenge that we would have to look into. And again, security and compliance would be an issue, as I think a lot of my previous colleagues have mentioned a lot of statistics and information about it, that security and compliance would be an issue. Transparency and when you talk about trust, how trust and accountability and transparency would work is a huge, I would say, challenge that we need to focus on. And especially when you talk about AI, we can have a technology advancement, but the trust that would be there on, I would say, AI would still be minimalistic as compared to an individual or so forth. And last thing I want to point out is the slide data, which is the issue when we want to dispose the data, or the time taken or the investment that would be taken to employ all of this. We have seen that moving from the landline aspect to smartphone has been challenging. So same way, when we move from smartphone to an artificial intelligence or Internet of Things, that would also be a challenge over time. So these are a few of the aspects, and I have just tried to put out a review of all the resources which are there, all the challenges across globe which have been mentioned. And I hope this would be useful for all the audience members who have joined. And surely I'd be happy to take questions at the end and have a discussion on how this can be taken forward over time. Over to you, Samiksha.
Thank you so much, sir, for this interesting session. We would be moving forward to the last speaker of the day, that is Dr. Carolina Agbola. And she's an associate professor at Jindal Institute of Behavioral Sciences, OP Jindal Global University. And she's going to brief us about the ethical consideration and human rights in AI-enabled law enforcement. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much, Samishka. Good morning, everybody. I'm just trying to share my screen. Okay, good. My name is Dr. Carolina Agbola, and the topic that I'll be speaking on this morning is ethical considerations and human rights in AI-enabled law enforcement. So over the years, the past few years, there's been an increasing reliance of AI in various sectors of life, from manufacturing to education to medicine to even the food industry and agriculture, and a lot more spheres of life. And there's also the rising use of AI in relates to organized crime. And even though AI has been seen to be beneficial to law enforcement of crime in general, and also that relates to crime from monitoring, detection, and also criminal investigations of organized criminal network. We've seen that these benefits, cuts across all sectors of life as well as law enforcement, and also not just the benefits of AI now in the present day. There's also a lot of potential for AI use in law enforcement. Also, with the benefit and the increasing reliance and use of AI in law enforcement comes corresponding ethical and human rights issues. And that will be the focus of my talk this morning. I'll just run through some of the ethical considerations and human rights issues that are present in AI-enabled law enforcement. The first one that I was speaking about is inaccuracy and unfairness. So a lot of data and real-life experiences have shown that oftentimes or sometimes AI is inaccurate in law enforcement, and this leads to unfairness of treatment for the victims of these inaccuracies. For instance, it's been shown that facial recognition is biased towards it's inaccurate when it comes to darker skin tone people. Even real life experiences have shown cases where some darker skin tone people have been convicted, wrongfully convicted for crimes which they did not commit based on the results that were generated from facial recognition tools. Also, regarding inaccuracies and unfairness of AI in law enforcement, also comes the contextual clauses, such as cases whereby sarcasm are used. So AI is not always intelligent enough to be able to pick out sarcasm. So sarcasm may be wrongfully interpreted as being the actual thing or the correct thing that people or suspects want to say. Another ethical issue is that of lack of transparency. AI algorithms that are used in predictive policing. One of my colleagues talked about predictive policing. That would be Professor Mohita. It's been shown that there's a lack of transparency in the AI algorithms that are used in predictive policing. And these are not always clear. In fact, predictive policing programs are also referred to as black boxes. And the term black boxes goes to show how obscure the processes that are involved in predictive policing is. Another ethical issue is that of lack of accountability. And lack of accountability is an offshoot of lack of transparency. There's a lack of accountability to the public for the use of AI in crime. So for instance, there are no clear answers, or there are no answers, in fact, regarding, for instance, when AI tools wrongfully convict, wrongfully give wrongful answers, which end up leading to convictions of innocent people. So when AI systems wrongfully give wrongful answers, which eventually lead to the conviction of innocent people, who then should be held responsible. Are the producers or manufacturers of the AI systems the ones to be held responsible? Or are we to hold liable the people who manage these AI systems? So there are no answers to issues like this. And this creates lack of accountability around the use of AI in crime. Another ethical issue is that of bias and discrimination. This was also briefly mentioned by my colleague, Professor Mohita. So studies have shown that AI systems tend to be gender biased. They also tend to perpetuate prejudices and stereotypical portrayal, as well as discriminatory policing pattern. All of these are based on the historical data which are imputed into AI system. And studies have shown that some of this historical data are actually they actually gathered based on some biases and prejudices. And when AI systems go ahead to work on this data, which are biased or discriminatory, it only goes further to continue to reproduce systems of discrimination and bias towards certain populations in society. Another ethical issue that I'll be speaking about is that of privacy concerns. So there are violations of individuals' right to freedom of association and assembly, as well as privacy. For instance, the data that is collected on people who do not have any associations with crime. Also, in the use of facial recognition systems, this has been shown to create issues of privacy concerns. And this leads me also to the last ethical issue, which I'll be looking at, and that has to do with data breaches. So when information is collected on people in society, be it people who have associations to criminal organizations or people who do not have such associations, this data is stored by law enforcement agencies. And we all know that hackers often hack into some security systems, which I even thought to be very difficult to hack into. So when such data breaches exist, it may lead to the use of people's data for criminal activities. So when these data breaches exist, or when these data breaches take place, this also takes us back to the issue of accountability. How accountable are the law enforcement agencies in such cases? Are the people whose data has been hacked, which people whose data are now in the hands of criminal individuals, are they informed of such data breaches? And then what are the steps that are taken to protect those people from being victims of criminal activities? Also, the steps that are taken to ensure that such data breaches do not take place in the future. Are all these issues being disclosed to the victims of these data breaches? All of these also, like I said, also takes us back to the issue of accountability in the use of AI in law enforcement. Lastly, I'll just like to wrap up by saying AI is very beneficial to law enforcement and also organized crime. Also, it holds a lot of potential for even more beneficial uses in those areas. Also, there's really greater reliance, over the years on the use of AI in law enforcement. And this calls for ethical AI guidelines to be put in place so that the ethical issues which I've mentioned can be effectively managed or addressed in the use of AI in law enforcement. Thank you for listening. Over to you, Samiksha.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. We would be would be taking some questions. If you can stop sharing the screen. Yeah. So I would be taking few questions. There were some questions in YouTube as well. I would be starting with Professor Sani. I'll pose the question if anybody can answer. Professor Sani did talk about AI and cybersecurity. So how can a higher education institute utilize AI in cybersecurity and prevention of cybercrime?
I think by the time he joins, I think Professor Mohita can take that because she's closely working with higher education students and various aspects of cyberbullying is also an area. So maybe Professor Mohita can take the question and then.
Yeah. So when you're looking at higher education institutions, there are a lot of apps these days that various higher education institutions are actually using. So these student apps, when they are going to be monitored at back end through the servers, then definitely we do understand. You can be having algorithms which will help you to trace any kind of activity that the students are doing. I'll give you one where we are looking at smart surveillance systems, which is there already on our campus, which is in formats of CCTVs, which are being monitored. This has helped us to curb a lot of student driven, any kind of activities which are not in tune to the student code of conduct outlined by our university, which is there. So it definitely helps us to take any kind of reformative actions against the students as well. So we are not looking towards any kind of punitive actions in higher education institutions, but moreover towards a reformation. So definitely it helps us. We do understand if there is any kind of, where we say gathering of students, if it's not a festival time, it's not a student driven festive time, then definitely if there are going to be more than 10 or 15 students, it helps us security guards who are constantly monitoring through the surveillance systems to reach the spot. There might be nothing really happening. 20 students of a particular section are just coming together to have their own fun, but then it's never, it's better to be there, the security guards to be there, then rather than be sorry, because you never know what kind of content are the students sharing with each other, what is their interaction, their conversations happening. So a lot of times it does lead to triggering of any kind of physical violence, abuses among the students also, which can lead to any extremities. So definitely these surveillance systems have helped us to monitor these kind of activities of students to a very large extent.
Wait a
Second,
minute. No, wait a minute. I also would like to pitch in over here that when you are talking about a cyberbullying, which is quite prevalent in higher education, what I want to tell you is probably the rest of the world might not have heard this word like a ragging, which exists in India. And somehow what we have seen over the period is that ragging is a criminal offense. And if the ragging happens, that has to be reported to the police station. So even the university authorities cannot take the decision or can take any punitive measures on that. Rather, it will go to the investigative agencies. But the second thing, which is more important related to your question, is that, this is not that in higher education, they learn these kind of things. In the school education system itself, there has to be a proper protocols, guidelines, standards for the teachers, for the parents, for the students, and for the school authorities, that how we can aware them about these kind of things. And let me tell you, the physical bullying, if you see the record or research from the last so many years, has been declined quite a lot, but the cyber bullying is increasing. And that is a major concern to all of us, because, bullying is not in terms of that you are only harassing people, but the kind of, after morphing certain pictures, and then you are trying to defame certain people. And I'm not talking about a fraud or other things, but lot many things are happening, these kind of things, where the higher education institutes, I'm extremely sorry to say that they have not much role to play with it. But if we can introduce certain these kind of things in school education, I'm sure that can work very well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have another question for Dr. Mohita. Ma'am, you did mention about machine learning algorithms can be used for analysis of crime and identifying the crime and prediction of future crime, right? So how can we restrict the ongoing bias that is happening, like the police bias?
So when you're looking at, like I already mentioned, that when you're going to be using any kind of machine algorithms, it's going to be data driven. So definitely it is devoid. The data driven is going to be devoid of any kind of biasness which is there. So even if police have any bias, this where you're looking at prediction of crime prevention, then definitely AI will help to reduce this. So there is no kind of intuition of the police that, okay, oh, this is going to happen and hence we have to do it. No, it's there is going to be data which is going to drive them, and hence there will be no kind of biasness of the police as well.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. We have another question for Dr. Vipin. Which agencies should be consulted when pursuing AI technology in organized crime? Sir, you're on mute.
Sorry. So sorry. So I think Professor Mohta also answered, but just to add upon, I think the main, I would say, organization or institution, especially when we talk about transnational organized crime or transborder organized crime, would be Interpol for the first instance if we talk about. Then UNODC, which talks about the drug control and the aspect of organized crime. Then depending upon the financial crime and organized crime, then there are respective forces. Even the FATF, which is the Financial Action Task Force, is one which can subsequently be considered. Then I think there would be other enforcement agency if it's related to trade. Then even WTO, the World Trade Organization, can come in if it's related to customs. Then there are subsequent international organizations that could come in. And then surely there need to be a licensing between the different country related organization, and then they can reach to the multilateral organizations. So all these organizations that I mentioned are the multilateral organizations that individual can reach.
Okay, so thank you so much. We have a question for Dr. Caroline. How can the ethical issues in AI-enabled law enforcement of organized crime be effectively addressed?
Thank you so much. So the ways that such ethical issues can be effectively addressed would be by creating and monitoring the processes of AI algorithms, AI systems, and creating AI systems that operate in such a way that they do not infringe on the fundamental human rights of people, AI systems that are transparent and accountable to the public on how they operate, how they generate data, and also what the generated data is about. I think also practical steps such as setting up review bodies that would review the way AI systems operate. Also, that review the compliance to the regulations that guide the operations of AI would be some of the ways that some of these ethical issues can be effectively addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We have another question in the chat box. Do you have any case studies that proves the use or success of using AI in combating organized crime? If anybody could take the question.
So, Samiksha, we have also replied. Vipin, maybe you could talk about the case study that you have.
Surely. So there are a large number of law enforcement agencies who have taken into consideration AI, especially in crime scene investigation. When you talk about algorithms to match various kind of crime scene, to understand what are the cues or clues that would be useful, because a lot of time through the naked eye, it may not be visible, and it might take over the time to watch all the photographs and crime scenes, photographs and videos to understand if there are cues which are there. So I have just highlighted in the chat box also, where in US, there have been dedicated training where around 200 law enforcement agencies are now utilizing algorithms, which are developed by researchers of University of Southern California. And what what they have done is they're focusing on the victims of human trafficking and how they are focusing on. So they have various kind of platforms. There are various kind of internet, I would say, websites, which usually targets individuals for jobs or any kind of lucrative offers which are there. So they're going forward to understand that what are the various kind of way out where individual might want to go forward for any lucrative offers. So those are various kind of red flags that would be looked into websites, and subsequently there are law enforcements who are trained into it. So what I think till now, till today, there are approximately 25 million pages that they have looked into to understand that are they propagating any keywords, any kind of terminologies or wording which is either related to human trafficking, or they are promoting narcotics, or they are promoting any kind of illegal wildlife trade or any kind of counterfeit goods. So these are few things where one of the successful case story which is there, and there are others which are going on, but this was the first thing that came into our mind, and subsequently I wanted to share that.
Thank you, sir. I just have one more question. So you did talk about chat box controlled by AI, right? So what, like most of the government bank pages, we do see the chat box which are run by AI. What do we do? Like what measures do we take if the websites are hacked?
So the hacking of websites, I would say, would be a little separate from when you talk about bots and chatbots and AI. But again, the AI aspect cannot work in silos, which means that they can't be independent look into. If we are using for chatbots, we also have to look into the artificial intelligence aspect, the technology aspect, the machine learning aspect, which talks about the preventive and the protective measures. So having a firewall which is strong enough where not just your chat box would be protected, but your entire website. So in India itself, we have seen many instances, and globally also there would have been many where there is hacking, and then hacking leads to ransom or extortion in terms of paying, or else we would not let you have your website domain back. So the first thing that we are talking about here is, if we are focusing on AI, if we are focusing on technology, we also need to spend our efforts and expenses focusing on the development of a robust protective and preventive measures, especially technology driven. One of the few things would be related to the firewall, which is there. Subsequently, the aspect of element of the encryption. Wherever there's a payment gateway, it should be encrypted. Then it also talks about website scripting, where there would be an encrypted one, and on your URL, if you see a lock one, that reflects that it's a secured and protected ones, and then subsequently payment gateway need to be encrypted. So a large number of measures, large number of, I would say, ways how individual, and not just individual, institution can also protect their website. So when the website is protected, it's not just one ambit, which is a chat box. Subsequently, the entire website would be secure and safe.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you everyone for the answers. We don't have further questions in the chat box, so we can wind up.
I think just last word from, I think, Jibs, if I want to point out, is I thank all the panelists who have joined. And I think this is the third time, and the conference is also organized third time, and we have been participating regularly and frequently in different events at the 24-hour conference, especially by the Transnational Organized Crime Association. So I thank Patricia also, who was with us to help us organize and have a smooth transition to the session. And just want to highlight that Generation of Behavioral Sciences is contributing in the realm of criminology and behavioral sciences through the lens of psychology. So we would be happy if any of the audience member would want to partner with us, collaborate with us. And you have seen that the diverse expertise that we have reflected from psychology through the aspect of human rights, criminology, and the cybercrime aspect. We'll be happy, and we would be happy to drop down our emails in the chat box, which could be circulated. And if you would want to interact with us, ask us a few more questions, we'd be happy to answer those. Thank you all, and have a good day. And thank you, the organizers, for your time and valuable inputs.